right?
Nothing clean, right?
Hey, I think this guy's a couple cans short of a six-pack.
You're close. Give them to me, now.
You asshole!
There is a version of the Terminator 1984 that you were never allowed to see. What you saw on screen, the cold steel chases the empty stare of the T-800, and the rise of Sarah Connor is actually only half of the real story. For 40 years, the most important scenes of the Terminator have been cut hidden or buried deep in the vaults of Orion and MGM. Inside those vaults lies a never-leaked intimate bedroom scene between the two leads, a Kyle Reese so vulnerable it destroyed his heroic image. A T-800 so cold it kills an innocent person just for answering the wrong question. And even a sequence so disturbing the studio declared that if they released it in 1984, the VHS version would be banned. Today, we are reopening the 9 most shocking deleted scenes of The Terminator, 1984, the true dark side of the Terminator that audiences were never allowed to see. 1. The intimate Terminator scene that terrified the studio. Did you know The Terminator once had a deleted scene removed not because of violence or outdated effects, but because it was too intimate, too close to the 18+ line to the point the studio stamped it not for release the moment they saw the edit? This scene takes place in a tiny dark room, lit only by a faint yellow glow from the window falling across a rumpled bed after the night's escape. The two main characters have just fled death from the future, their bodies sweaty, their breathing uneven. They lie so close that a single small movement would make the blanket slip even lower. Sarah props herself up on her elbow, turning toward Kyle, her messy hair falling over her bare shoulder, her eyes still flickering with fear and relief at surviving. Then she smiles, a thin, warm, sensual smile that made the entire crew hold their breath. The man places his hand on her waist and pulls her closer. No script, no direction. The two simply melted into each other with an ease that felt almost too natural. A lighting crew member later said, "Looking at the monitor, I thought I was watching an 18+ art house scene. It was way too much." In one take, she whispered something right against his ear. He laughed, tightened his arms around her. The blanket slipped so low that the director quietly said, "Cut. We can't put this in the film." Not because they were having sex, that scene remains in the movie. What got this one deleted was the atmosphere, two bodies wrapped around each other, laughing softly, touching slow, gentle, yet instinctive to a level that went far beyond what an action horror film could ever show. It was too real, too raw, too private. One crew member said bluntly in the editing meeting, "If we keep this in the movie, we'll shift from sci-fi to art house erotica." 2. The scene fans fought over Kyle Reese cries and the terrifying truth behind it.
And you, so beautiful. It hurts, Sarah. It hurts so bad.
Did you know there was once a scene that many complained made Kyle Reese look too weak, to the point the studio cut it entirely? But if you understand it, you'll realise this was the most painful, most honest, and most important moment of his character. This scene takes place right after Kyle and Sarah escape the Terminator, hiding in a quiet forest to rest. At first, it was supposed to be a short, silent beat for the characters to catch their breath. Nothing special in the script. But then, something unexpected happened. When the camera rolled, Michael Biehn, Kyle Reese, suddenly broke down crying for real. Not acting, not rehearsed. He collapsed forward, stifling a sob as tears streamed down his face. Linda Hamilton looked at him exactly as you see in the film, stunned, sympathetic, unsure what to do. The whole crew froze. Cameron froze. No one yelled cut. They let the moment unravel, naturally painfully real to the point of sending chills down everyone's spine. The problem came later in the editing room. Some worried a soldier crying, audiences will think he's weak, so the scene was removed. But if you understand who Kyle Reese truly is, you know, he wasn't weak at all. He was born after Judgment Day in a world of ashes, killing machines and tunnels that felt like mass graves. He grew up never seeing a blue sky, never hearing running water, never knowing the world had once been beautiful. The only thing connecting him to peacetime was a single old photograph. And in that forest, hearing the stream, seeing sunlight through the leaves, he suddenly realized he was touching something humanity would lose forever. He was living inside a paradise erased from his own future, and the horror that broke him was this truth. The war he came to prevent was still coming. That wasn't a weakness, it was the grief of a man who already knew the end of the world. 3. The 40 Buried Seconds. The face-peeling T-800 scene no one was ever allowed to see. The very first scene Hollywood never wanted you to see lies inside one of the most haunting moments in The Terminator, 1984. On screen, it lasts only a few seconds. Arnold looking into the mirror adjusting his damaged face. But the original version runs almost 40 seconds. And in those 40 seconds, Cameron created a moment so disturbing it had to be buried. In the deleted version, the T-800 sits motionless before the fogged-up mirror, the yellow light casting shadows across his burned face after the explosion. No dialogue, no breathing. Only the metallic scrape of an old razor blade in his hand. He begins shaving off patches of eyebrow. At first, just a few strands. Then an entire burnt section of skin peels off, sliding down his cheek. The skin around his eye cracks like dried wood. There is no blood because he isn't human. But it's precisely this lack of pain, this lack of reaction, that makes the scene more terrifying than any wound. A real human would scream, but the T-800 simply stares into the mirror, as if inspecting a malfunctioning piece of equipment. At the 25-second mark of the full cut, Cameron pushes the camera right up to Arnold's eye. The red pupil glows wet and trembling behind the scorched tissue, a detail only present in the work print showing the machine scanning the damage level of the soft tissue around the socket. No modern CGI, only handmade prosthetics, latex fused with fake blood and hot lights, shrinking the prosthetic layer bit by bit. At the end of the scene, the T-800 tears off the entire strip of skin beneath the eyebrow, a chunk about 5 to 6 centimeters long, and tosses it into the sink like a piece of industrial trash. At that moment, his face appears bare and exposed. No eyebrows, no expression, just a half-robot, half-human mask. Orion Studios demanded the scene be removed immediately, not because it was violent, but because so many test screening viewers reacted badly, some even asked to step outside, describing it as watching a human face being peeled off layer by layer. Cameron later said, "The T-800 isn't scary because he kills. What's scary is that he doesn't know he's supposed to feel pain." And from that moment on, the scene was buried forever, something 1984 audiences were never allowed to see. 4. The moment Sarah breaks the truth about how Ginger really died. If there is one scene in The Terminator 1984 that would shock modern audiences, it is the death of Sarah's best friend Ginger. But what viewers saw in the theatrical release is only a softened version, almost a safe edition for general audiences. The full original version was far more brutal. In the released cut, Sarah only glimpses Ginger lying motionless on the floor before panicking and fleeing. But in the deleted version, the scene extends by about 15 to 18 seconds, just enough to turn it into one of the most violent images in the entire Terminator franchise. Cameron filmed Ginger in a state that can only be described as torn apart. Her head tilted to one side, hair matted with blood. Part of her body was crushed into the wall, blood sprayed in an arc, a sign of an extreme impact force. A strip of skin on her arm stretched out as if scraped by a metal hook. This wasn't action movie killing. This was industrial machinery killing, cold, fast, emotionless. What made it even more unsettling was a detail removed from the theatrical cut. The T-800 leaves the room exactly as Sarah approaches. He doesn't run, doesn't hide, doesn't look back. He simply walks out like a machine completing a production cycle, straight, even mechanical. A crew member once said, "The way Arnold walked out, it looked like a robot from a shipyard. There was no killing. There was only one task completed." In the full cut, the camera also lingers on Sarah's eyes that are frozen hollow, unable to process what she's seeing. And this moment was supposed to be Sarah Connor's first true collapse, an ordinary young woman thrown into a world of death with the most brutal initiation possible. But Orion demanded nearly all of it be removed. The official reason: too gory, too disturbing, and likely to earn an NC-17 rating. Cameron reluctantly agreed. He knew that if he kept the scene, the Terminator might be banned in several states. What remains in the final cut is only a faint shadow of the original scene. 5. The band-sensitive scene. The T-800 scans Sarah's body. There is a scene in the Terminator 1984 that even hardcore fans barely know about. Not because it was violent, but because it was too sensitive by 1984 standards, to the point that Orion erased it from every release. In the original script, when the T-800 breaks into Ginger's apartment, Sarah is in the bathroom changing clothes and drying her hair completely, unaware that death is standing just a few steps away. But the frightening part isn't the distance. It's what Cameron intended the audience to see: how a killing machine observes a human being. In the deleted version, the T-800 doesn't barge in, doesn't break the door, doesn't attack. It stands still like a steel pillar, its red eyes switching to thermal scan mode. The camera cuts to the machine's POV, heart rate 91, 98, 102 BPM, body temperature 36.8 degrees. Muscle-bone-fat ratios displayed like colour-coded X-rays, and finally, reproductive status healthy. There is no sexual content, no nudity, only the chilling precision of a machine analysing a human body as if examining a medical specimen. Even more disturbing, Sarah has no idea she's being scanned. She hears only the dripping water in the bathroom, while right outside the door stands a creature capable of killing everyone in the building with 2 strikes, silently calculating every biological statistic she has. At the end of the scene, the T-800 confirms target not present, then turns away and leaves as if Sarah never existed. To Cameron, this scene was meant to show the T-800's absolute emotional coldness. It doesn't see Sarah as a woman. It doesn't see her as a victim. It sees her as data. But Orion reacted harshly. They feared that a machine scanning a woman's body, even though entirely non-sexual, would be judged as exploitative. In 1984, the idea of letting a camera see through a female character's body was considered too bold, too sensitive, and more controversial than violence itself. The result: the scene was erased completely. Not in theatres, not on VHS, not on DVD, not even in the deleted scenes menu. Only rumours remain, and a few surviving lines in the original script. 6. The most brutal deleted scene in Terminator 1984, the T-800, once killed an innocent woman. In the final movie, viewers only see the T-800 calling Sarah's apartment and leaving the iconic line, "I'll be back." But in the original script, Cameron intended to show a far more horrifying and emotionless version of the Terminator, and a full version of this scene was actually filmed before being removed from every release for being too cruel. In the uncut version, the T-800 doesn't just call, it shows up in person. The deleted scene opens with a heavy knock echoing through the old apartment building. The landlady, a small-framed middle-aged woman, opens the door slightly holding a steaming cup of tea. Seeing a nearly 2-meter-tall man in sunglasses and rippling muscle standing at her door, she stays cautious, but polite. Sarah's not here. That is the trigger for the Terminator's elimination mode. No follow-up questions, no further analysis, no need for verification. He receives the information and concludes target not located. In the logic of a killing machine, that means remove the obstacle. Cameron describes in the script the T-800 suddenly pushes the door so hard the hinges snap. Before the landlady can scream, he grabs her collar and throws her into the wall like a sandbag. The impact splatters blood onto the doorframe, and the cup of tea drops and shatters into 3 pieces, a detail the crew referred to as the last human moment in the frame. The filmed version shows the landlady crawling toward the exit, her hands smeared with blood, her voice trembling as she tries to say Sarah's name. But the T-800 steps forward, raises his foot, and stomps down with mechanical certainty, bending her body at an unnatural angle. No music, no slow motion, just a cold crack like snapping metal. Then he delivers a line written clearly in the script, "Wrong, Sarah." No emotion, no hatred, just a machine reporting its outcome. At test screenings, this scene caused multiple viewers to walk out. Orion immediately ordered it removed. The official reason: excessive, needlessly cruel, and it makes the T-800 look like a demonic killer instead of a robot. Had the scene remained The Terminator, might have been classified as a gory horror film, rather than the sci-fi action classic it became. 7. The scene. Cameron was forced to delete the T-800 uses a child's voice to hunt. In The Terminator, 1984, audiences only see a very brief moment, the T-800 adjusting its voice to mimic a human. A small, simple, seemingly harmless scene. But that is only the part you are allowed to see. In the original, never-released version, Cameron filmed a nearly 30-second sequence, one that to this day is disturbing even in description. Because in the early cut, the T-800 didn't just test adult voices, it tested every kind of voice, including ones no one expected. The deleted scene begins in a dark room, lit only by a blinking red bulb reflecting off Arnold's eyes. The camera moves in close, focusing on his steel-cold face, nearly devoid of anything human. Then an interface appears listing options: male, mid-tone, female, soft tone, elderly, rasped, child, primary voice sample. The T-800 selects each voice. No emotion, no expression. First comes the female voice, glitchy, fragmented like a machine struggling to imitate breath. Then the elderly voice, rough broken metal, grinding faintly beneath the tone. But the most disturbing part is the child's voice. When it selects child voice, the camera zooms in on the T-800's unmoving lips, and from them comes a sound that made everyone on set shiver. "Mummy, can you help me?" A little girl's voice, but delivered with unnatural precision, without breath, without vibration. A child's voice with no soul, like audio generated by a photocopier, instead of vocal cords. A sound engineer once said, "We created the voice of a 6-year-old girl, but when we put it on Arnold's face, it stopped being a child's voice. It became something artificial, something deeply unsettling." The scene ends with the T-800 analysing each sample, then selecting the coldest one. The screen displays optimal vocal tone, selected emotional neutrality, 0%. Orion demanded the entire scene be removed immediately, not because of violence, not because of sensitivity, but because it was too frightening for 1980s VHS audiences, especially the idea of a killing machine perfectly mimicking a child's voice. 8. The hidden supermarket scene. Kyle Reese was not always the perfect hero. In The Terminator, 1984, Kyle Reese is portrayed as the heroic soldier from the future, risking his life to protect Sarah Connor. But one deleted scene disrupted that image, a scene that was fully filmed, then banned from release because it made Kyle appear unstable, dangerous, and far darker than the good soldier audiences knew. This is the full supermarket theft scene, the banned version never shown publicly. It opens with the store's door chime ringing. Kyle, exhausted after a night of running stumbles inside, wearing torn clothes, eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. No one knows who he is. No one knows he's from 2029. And no one knows that in his mind anyone around him could be a disguised machine. Kyle says nothing. He walks straight to the clothing rack, ripping jeans and a jacket from the hangers. Then the food aisle, stuffing everything into a bag with fast, rough, survival-driven movements. 2 store employees rush over thinking he's just a desperate thief. That's when the banned portion begins. One employee touches Kyle's shoulder. Kyle spins around like a battlefield reflex and punches him straight in the face. Then he grabs the second employee by the collar and slams him to the floor. The impact doesn't sound like a scuffle, it sounds like soldiers fighting in a ruined war zone. But the fully cut moment happens at the end. Kyle spots a security guard sprinting toward him. The neon lights reflect off the guard's belt buckle, forming a metal glint. To Kyle, traumatized by years of killer robots, that tiny detail is enough to trigger panic. He lunges, grabs the guard by the throat, squeezes hard, growls, "Are you a machine or human?" Answer. The man can only choke out fragments. Kyle tightens his grip until the guard is nearly unconscious. This was the moment that forced Cameron to remove the scene. During a small test screening, one viewer shouted, "I don't know if I'm watching a hero or a psychopath." Cameron understood keeping this scene would make Kyle Reese, the embodiment of hope, appear too dangerous, too unstable, and risk shifting the entire story into a much darker direction. So the supermarket meltdown scene vanished, leaving only a few clean seconds in the theatrical cut, just enough to keep Kyle Reese the beloved saviour everyone remembers. 9. The deleted prophecy, the scene where Sarah Connor sees the future. Perhaps in all of The Terminator 1984, no scene touches the true destiny of Sarah Connor more deeply than this one. A scene Cameron edited, prepared for the final cut, then erased completely as if it had never existed. This scene takes place right after Sarah and Kyle hide in the old underground tunnel system beneath Los Angeles. Both are exhausted. Kyle leans back against the wall, face pale from PTSD. Sarah curls up beside him, trying to steady her breathing in the cold concrete and damp echoes. And then she falls asleep. From the very first seconds, the dream doesn't feel like a dream at all. Not blurry, not surreal, but disturbingly real, as if memories from the future are bleeding backward through time. Sarah stands in the middle of Los Angeles, but not the city she knows. The sky burns red. The wind carries human ash. White bones scatter across the ground, brittle as glass cracking under her footsteps. Children run screaming between glowing metal ruins while the screech of steel cuts the air like muffled, strangled cries. Then a sound appears. A sound anyone who has ever watched Terminator knows, the grinding of human bones beneath machines repeating like ocean waves. Sarah turns her head, and that is the moment that got this scene labelled too dark to ever be shown. She sees herself, her 2029 version. A hardened face, eyes stripped of humanity, a body covered in scars, shotgun in hand standing in the flames like a war general. The future Sarah stares directly at her present self unblinking and says, "You're the mother of the end." The line isn't just haunting, it redefines Sarah's entire fate. It doesn't frame her as the mother of hope, but also as the mother of destruction, the one who gives birth to the future, in both meaning salvation and annihilation. Cameron deleted the scene for 3 reasons. It gave Sarah foreknowledge of her destiny, harming her natural character progression. It contradicted her transformation in Terminator 2, where she becomes a warrior gradually not due to prophecy. It leaned too heavily into horror and supernatural tones, dragging the film away from sci-fi action. The footage existed, but was never allowed to reach the public. And those are the scenes buried for 40 years pieces that, if kept, might have turned The Terminator 1984 into a completely different movie. Hollywood erased them to protect the film's image. Cameron cut them to preserve mystery. The studio buried them so the film wouldn't become an NC-17 nightmare. But the truth is still there. Beneath the film lies a version that is darker, harsher, and far more consistent with the spirit of machines ruling humanity. Perhaps that's why these scenes were never released. Not on DVD, not on Blu-ray, not in any deleted scenes section. They survive only in the script, in a few behind-the-scenes accounts, and in the memories of those who worked on the film. But today, you've seen it. You now know just how terrifying The Terminator almost was before Hollywood cleaned it up. Which deleted scene shocked you the most? Is there any scene you think should have stayed in the film? Leave your thoughts below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to continue exploring the hidden secrets Hollywood has buried for decades.